The seat wasn't special. Just a worn cushion, stiff springs underneath. The kind that poked your spine when the bus hit a bump. But to Claudie Mae Taylor, it might as well have been a throne. She sat by the window because it was hot that day. The Alabama sun had teeth, and the breeze was all she had. She clutched her lunch pail on her lap. 2 biscuits, a boiled egg, and a slice of peach cobbler wrapped in wax paper. The bus smelled like dust, sweat, and worn leather. Her shift at the laundry had ended, and her legs ached, but her back was straight. She didn't mean to start anything. But the moment the white driver barked, "You, girl, move on back now," Claudie Mae knew. Today, silence would feel like shame. She didn't look up, just said, "I paid my fare, same as him." The man in the suit, white, mid-40s, red-faced from the heat, stood waiting, expectant. The driver frowned. "Don't make me call it in, girl." A few heads turned. Most didn't. This was 1954. Everybody knew how this went. But Claudie Mae didn't move. Not this time. Claudie Mae stared out the window, her reflection barely visible against the sunlit street. The wheels beneath her trembled over loose gravel as the bus jolted. Every part of her wanted to sink into the seat, disappear into the noise of tires and wind. But she stayed upright, still, defiant. The driver stopped the bus. He stood now, hands on hips, sweat darkening the edges of his cap. Last warning. Still, she didn't move. She could feel her heart like a drum inside her chest, rattling the bones in her ribs. But her voice didn't shake. "I ain't breaking no law." He spat to the side. "You're breaking the order, girl." A murmur passed through the rows. A woman near the front whispered to no one, "Foolish girl, gonna get herself killed." But someone else, older, deeper voice, said, "'Bout time somebody did." The driver climbed down from the steps and disappeared out the front door. Silence filled the bus, like water rising in a tank. The man still waiting for her seat didn't speak, just glared. And Claudie Mae? She sat still. Not stiff, but steady, like a tree that had weathered too many storms to fear another. 5 minutes passed, maybe more. Then the patrol car arrived. 2 officers stepped onto the bus, one tall, one squat, both white, both with tight lips and long nightsticks. The tall one addressed her like a schoolteacher scolding a child. "Let's go, sweetheart. Time to get up." She said nothing. He stepped closer. "Don't make us do this." Still silence. He reached for her arm. Claudie Mae stood up, but not to move to the back. She lifted her voice. "Why don't you ask him to move? He's got 2 good legs. Ain't like the front half of the bus is his birthright." Gasps followed. Someone cursed under their breath. The squat cop reached out. The rest happened fast. Her pail fell first, clattering open. The egg cracked. Cobbler smeared across the floor. Her arm twisted. Pain flared in her shoulder. The nightstick didn't hit. Not yet. But the threat of it was enough. As they pulled her down the aisle, a voice called from the back. "She ain't done nothing wrong." Another voice. "Leave her be." But no one stood up. Not really. Not yet. On the sidewalk, in the blazing sun, the handcuffs clicked around her wrists like cold declarations. One officer whispered near her ear, "You people never learn." And Claudie Mae, chest heaving, sweat on her brow, looked him in the eye and said, "You're right. I'm just getting started." The jail cell was cold, not from air conditioning, but from the old stone walls that never seemed to forget winter. Claudie Mae sat on the bench, wrists sore, dress stained with bus floor grime. She hadn't cried. Not in the car. Not during booking. Not when they asked her name, like it didn't matter. "Where's your husband?" the deputy had asked. "Ain't got one," she answered. He chuckled. Figures. Now, in the silence of the holding cell, the weight began to settle on her chest. What had she done? Not just for herself, but for Mama, who warned her about making noise. For her little brother James, who needed her to be steady. For Miss Lillian at the laundry, who might lose her job for hiring her. She pressed her palms together like in church. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Lord, give me courage like Moses, like Harriet, like them ladies with fire in their bones. Outside the bars, a key rattled. The door creaked open. A woman stepped in, slim, composed. That sharp as a knife's edge, brown gloves, leather purse, a scent of lavender. "You Claudie Mae Taylor?" the woman asked. "Yes, ma'am. I'm with the NAACP." She pulled a folded sheet from her bag. "You made the papers." Claudie Mae's stomach turned. "They said my name?" "They sure did. But that ain't all. You lit a fuse, child. You ain't alone." That night, Claudie Mae lay awake on a cot that sagged like a tired old man. She listened to the rats in the walls and the click of shoes down the hall. Her cellmate was an old woman named Queenie, locked up for disorderly conduct after she slapped a shopkeeper who tried to shortchange her. "You brave baby," Queenie said in the dark. "Braver than you know." "I didn't mean to be," Claudie Mae whispered. Queenie chuckled. "Don't matter. Ain't bravery always accidental? Reckon we all get our day. Today was yours." Outside, the cicadas sang. Inside, Claudie Mae finally closed her eyes. Not in surrender, but in readiness. The news didn't hit the front page. Not yet, but it moved quicker than ink. Through barbershops, church pews, and beauty parlors, passed from lips like a secret too powerful to keep. Girl on the M14 line didn't give up her seat. She black? Black and bold, sat like she owned the street. In living rooms and laundromats, folks leaned in. Whispers carried more fire than any sermon. Something had cracked in the air. Not a snap, but a slow tear. The kind you feel before thunder. At a small table in a red brick house, Reverend Brooks reread the telegram from the NAACP, his hand trembling slightly. "They want us to gather," he told his wife. Lorraine glanced up from sewing. "Because of the girl? They think this could be it." She laid down her needle. "Then we'd best start praying now." Miles away, Claudie Mae was spooning grits into James's bowl. "People say you got arrested," he said, watching her. "Where'd you hear that?" "Miss Lillian said you made yourself a spectacle." Claudie froze. "It was just a seat." He shrugged. "Maybe they mad you did something they scared too." She smiled, just barely. "Eat your breakfast." But her stomach stayed tight. They were talking. Everyone was talking. That Monday night, in a creaky church basement, folding chairs groaned under the weight of anticipation. Reverend Brooks stood tall behind the pulpit. This girl didn't ask for a revolution, but she might have started one. A rustle of murmurs filled the room. "What we supposed to do?" someone asked. "March? Petition?" Brooks looked out at them. "We sit, off the buses, one day, Friday." The room went still. "Just one day," he said. "Let's see if they feel it." Some nodded. Some shifted in their chairs. But a decision had been made. The first day of resistance was set. That night, Claudie Mae walked home with a paper bag pressed to her chest. A car slowed behind her. 3 teenage boys leaned out. "Hey there, Rosa," one jeered. "Back of the bus not good enough?" Another voice sneered. "Bet you ain't so brave now." Then a bottle. Empty. It hit her shoulder, bounced, shattered. She didn't run. They laughed and sped off. She stood alone, breath shallow, heart hammering. A shard of glass sparkled at her feet. Still, she didn't turn back. She walked on. Wounded, but unbroken. At home, Mama waited on the porch like judgment in a housecoat. "I told you," she said. "You fight fire, you get burned." Claudie stepped past her into the dim kitchen. "You think this makes you holy?" Mama followed. "Makes you a target, that's what." Claudie turned. "It's about not feeling like dirt no more." "You want to die for a bus seat?" "No," she said. "I want to live like I matter." Mama turned away. "That kind of living gets you killed." Silence swallowed the room, and the hurt sat between them like another daughter lost. Thursday, flyers bloomed across the city. Walk Friday, no rides, no fares, no chains. Whispers became planning. Planning became movement. At City Hall, the mayor slammed a stack of newspapers down. "How the hell does one colored girl start a riot?" "She didn't," someone muttered, "but they're watching her now." Threats followed. Audits, phone calls, pressure on pastors and workers. Quiet warnings, quiet fear. But still, the walking plan held. No one backed down. In 100 kitchens, 100 hearts beat faster. The clock was ticking. Friday morning, the city stirred early. Claudie May stood at her window. Old Mr. Percy walked with his cane. Mrs. Delilah carried laundry like a queen. Children walked in twos to school. Nobody waiting for the bus. Nobody boarding. Every step on the sidewalk was thunder, and Claudie, still bruised, still aching, saw it. Saw them walk for her, with her. Her eyes welled, and for the first time, she didn't feel like the girl who got dragged off a bus. She felt like someone the city could rise around. So it started with broken windows. The first was Reverend Brooks' car, a rock through the windshield. Then came the calls, late at night, always anonymous. "Better sit back down, preacher man." At first he didn't tell anyone, but when the second rock hit the church door, he stood before his congregation and told them the truth. "They want us scared," he said. "They want us small. But I serve a God who ain't never blinked at the sound of glass breaking." The crowd murmured, some in praise, others in fear, because things were changing fast now. The boycott had held through the weekend. Drivers sat alone in near-empty buses. Black passengers either walked, shared cars, or rode with friendly cappies who charged 10 cents, same as a bus fare. The city retaliated with fines and threats to revoke licenses. But the people still walked. At the laundromat, Claudie May folded clothes as police cruisers rolled slow outside the window, again and again. She didn't flinch. Not anymore. Miss Lillian, her boss, watched through narrowed eyes. "You sure stirred up a mess, girl." Claudie said nothing. Just kept folding. "Store down the street got bricks through the front glass. Some white folks blaming you for that." Claudie kept folding. "You think this ends with you winning?" Claudie finally looked up. "I ain't thinking about winning. I'm thinking about not disappearing." Miss Lillian said nothing, but she didn't fire her either. Not yet. That night, someone burned a cross in Claudie's yard. Mama screamed when she saw it. James started crying. Claudie stood at the window, eyes locked on the orange flicker. Mama grabbed her arm. "We going to your aunt's. Tonight." "No," Claudie said. "I'm staying. They could come back with more than fire." "I know. You trying to get killed, child?" Claudie turned toward her. "No, ma'am. I'm trying to live like I deserve to breathe." Mama's hand trembled, but she didn't argue again. That night, they didn't sleep. By Wednesday, the newspapers had changed their tune. What started as silence turned into sneers. Colored agitation disrupts public order. One girl's tantrum cripples city transit, but the people still walked. Claudie May began rising at dawn to escort elders to work. Miss Essie to the diner. Mr. Booker to the library. Their feet ached. Ankles swelled. But their backs still straight. Some neighbors offered rides in jalopies and pickup trucks. They called them rolling churches, packed with hope, sweat, and song. One day, a white man in a blue Ford slowed beside them. "You people keep this up," he said. "Ain't gonna be no city left." Mr. Booker smiled with tired eyes. "Then maybe we'll build one that loves us back." That Friday, the police raided Reverend Brooks's church. No warrant, no explanation. They overturned chairs, pulled hymnals from pews, tore through the pastor's office like they were digging for gold. Found nothing. But they left the doors open, wind whipping pages of half-sung songs. That same evening, James didn't come home on time. Mama paced the porch. Claudie checked the block twice. By nightfall, fear was chewing holes in her gut. Then, headlights. A neighbor's truck. James climbed out, scraped up, silent. "What happened?" Claudie asked, grabbing him. He hesitated. Then, 3 white boys pulled me off my bike. Said I was your brother. Said you made them late for school every day. Claudie's heart cracked clean in half. Later, Mama found her scrubbing James's blood from his shirt. "He's just a child," she said. "He don't deserve this." Claudie whispered, "None of us do." "Then stop it, Claudie. Just stop it." But she couldn't. By Sunday, Claudie sat in the back row of church, not as a protest, but because the front pews made her feel exposed. Reverend Brooks took the pulpit with bandaged hands. "They came for me," he said, "but I'm still standing." The room clapped, shouted, wept. Then he looked at Claudie. "Some of us are paying more than others. But freedom always comes with receipts." People turned, faces soft. Some with shame, some with something like reverence. She didn't cry. She just nodded. The knock came at 4:17 a.m. Hard, heavy, not like a neighbor, like war. Mama was first to the door, robe clutched tight. Claudie was next, pulse already racing. 2 officers stood outside. Not local, state boys. "You, Claudie May Fletcher?" "Yes. You're under arrest." "For what?" "No permit for organized transport. Aiding unlawful gatherings. Disrupting city commerce." Mama screamed. "She walks to work." One officer shrugged. "That's the problem." The cell was cold. No blanket. No phone call. Claudie sat on concrete, back to the wall, knees to her chest. She could still smell smoke on her coat. Someone had burned another cross outside the church last night. Across the hallway, through rusted bars, a woman in her 40s with silver streaks in her braids gave a slow nod. "You the one got 'em walking?" Claudie didn't answer. The woman smirked. "Girl, you got steel in your bones. That's good, 'cause they gonna try to melt you." By noon, 26 others had been arrested. Pastors, housewives, a 14-year-old paperboy. The jail overflowed, so they put some in school gymnasiums, others in buses with barred windows. The city said nothing, but everyone knew this was war now. Outside the jail, crowds formed. Some prayed, others chanted. Some just stood there, silent and furious. Reverend Brooks showed up with a lawyer from Atlanta. By 6 p.m., Claudie was released. "Don't speak to reporters," the lawyer warned. "They'll twist every word." Claudie nodded, but her silence was not fear. It was precision. That night, James crawled into her bed. "You gonna get locked up again?" he whispered. Claudie ran her fingers through his hair. "I don't know, baby. I hope not." "Can you stop now?" She didn't answer. James looked up. "Please, Claudie, I don't want you to disappear." Her chest ached. She kissed his forehead. "I don't want me to disappear either." The next day, a white journalist asked for an interview. He said his paper was trying to understand both sides. Claudie looked him in the eye. "Which side of burning a cross do you want to understand?" He left without asking a second question. That Friday, the mayor offered what he called a compromise. "Negroes may ride in the back in peace, provided they behave," he announced on live radio, "and provided they know their place." That night, Claudie joined a meeting of the Resistance Committee. Not a name they chose, but one the city gave them. They just called it Tuesday Night Circle. Reverend Brooks, arms still bruised from the raid, spoke softly. "This ain't about seats," he said. "It's about the soul of this city." One woman stood. "My husband lost his job for driving us to work. We got babies. I can't eat soul." Another man, "We're tired and broke." Claudie rose. "So am I," she said. "But I'd rather be tired from walking than from bowing." The room went quiet. Then came the nods, the murmurs, the songs. The next morning, Claudie returned to the laundromat. Miss Lillian was at the counter, lips thin, eyes hard. "You missed 2 shifts. I was in jail. You planning to make a habit of that?" "No, ma'am. I'm planning to be free." Miss Lillian didn't blink. "You're fired." Claudie nodded, folded her apron, and walked out. 2 days later, someone slashed their family's tires. James found it first. Why would they do this? Claudie didn't have an answer that would comfort a child, only the truth. Because they think we ain't allowed to fight. Word came on Tuesday. They were taking names. City officials had begun compiling a list of boycott leaders. Some said they were building a case for conspiracy. Others said worse, that people on the list were being targeted. That night, Mama begged again. "You done your part, Claudie. Please, let it be enough." "I can't. Not yet." "You gonna leave James with no sister?" "I'm trying to leave him with something better than that." At the next meeting, there were only 12 people. 2 weeks ago, there'd been nearly 100. Some had been arrested, others threatened. Most were just afraid. "Maybe we should pause," someone said. Reverend Brooks looked at Claudie. He didn't speak, just nodded once. The floor was hers. She stepped up. "If we stop now, what do we teach the next ones? That fear wins? That justice is a luxury?" She looked around. Some eyes dropped. Others held hers. "Maybe we don't all make it to the end. Maybe we get bruised, fired, hurt. But we make noise. Enough noise that they can't forget we were here." She swallowed. "My little brother asked if I was going to disappear. And I almost said yes. But I won't." She stepped back. The room stood. Quiet, but standing. The first bomb hit on a Thursday. No one was killed. Not this time. But the parsonage of Reverend Brooks lay in ruins. Front porch splintered. Windows shattered. Bible pages floating like ash in the wind. Claudie got the call at 4:12 a.m. Again at 4 a.m. She ran barefoot to the site. Dozens were already there, in robes, slippers, pajamas, some crying, some silent, a few standing like statues. Reverend Brooks emerged from the rubble, bloody lip, burned coat. He looked at the crowd and simply said, "Still not enough to make me sit down." The mayor called the bombing unfortunate. The governor called it understandable tension. The Montgomery Advertiser called it Negro provocation. Claudie called it what it was: terror. By week 9, the city filed a civil injunction. Any further meetings, carpools, flyers, or speeches about the boycott would be considered sedition. And yet, the meetings continued. In basements, in barbershops, behind churches, and inside back rooms of grocery stores. One woman delivered flyers inside loaves of bread. A teenager stuffed bus maps into hymnals. When Claudie spoke again, her voice had changed. It wasn't just louder. It was sharper, weighted. "You don't get to burn us and silence us too," she said into a smuggled microphone. "We may walk tired, but we walk with thunder." The crowd erupted. On the 12th Sunday, the buses rode half empty. Even white riders noticed. "They really ain't riding," one man whispered. "Not even the old ones." And in the downtown square, a statue of a Confederate general wore a sign hung around its bronze neck. "We sat in the back so long, we stood up." James started keeping a notebook. He titled it "What Freedom Sounds Like." He'd write down chants, sermons, even whispers. He followed Claudie to rallies and taped scraps of paper to the wall with phrases like, "Feet don't fail me now." "If they push, we plant. No seat, no silence." Mama pretended not to be proud, but she stitched new soles onto James's shoes every 2 weeks. Then came the ruling. December 20th, 1956. The U.S. Supreme Court declared segregation on public buses unconstitutional. Reverend Brooks read it aloud on the church steps, voice trembling. "It is so ordered," he repeated. People screamed, wept, laughed. Others just stood still, afraid to believe. Claudie sat down on the curb and finally cried. James hugged her shoulders. "You didn't disappear," he whispered. 3 days after the ruling, Claudie boarded a city bus. Not with fear, not with permission, with a coin in her hand and history in her chest. James came with her, clutching his notebook. They sat near the front, not in the very front, but close enough to be seen. The driver didn't speak, just stared. Then hit the gas. At the next stop, a white woman climbed aboard. She paused when she saw Claudie. "I'm not sitting behind, no," she didn't finish, because no one moved. Not Claudie, not James, not the young black woman behind them, not the elderly man 2 rows down. The bus moved again. The woman stood the whole way. That night, someone threw a brick through Mama's window. It landed in the kitchen, scattering glass into the sink. Wrapped around it was a note: "This ain't over." Claudie picked up the note. She didn't cry, didn't scream. She just said, "Then neither are we." The threats came in waves. Phone calls, letters. One night, a car backfired, and the whole house ducked for 10 minutes. But something had shifted. People still walked, now out of pride, not protest. And the city felt it, the quiet surrender of control. The way old systems crack when people stop asking permission to breathe. James finished his notebook. He handed it to Claudie one morning, right before she left for another meeting. She flipped through it. Chants, slogans, headlines, fragments of speeches. In the back was a drawing of her, standing on a crate, fists at her side, fire behind her, and people in front. Underneath, he'd written, "You taught me what walking means." Reverend Brooks nominated her to speak in Atlanta, before the Southern Leadership Council, before hundreds of men and women in ties, in suits, in heels. She wore a white blouse, not to be polite, but to be seen. She walked up to the podium, looked out at the crowd, and began. "My name is Claudie Mae Fletcher. I used to ride in the back. I used to stay quiet. I used to believe freedom would come politely." A pause. "But I stopped sitting, and when I stood up, the city shook." By spring, the movement had names, chapters, national attention. They called them the Montgomery 54. Claudie didn't care for titles, or interviews, or parades. She only cared that her brother no longer looked over his shoulder when walking to school, that her mother no longer flinched when the phone rang, that somewhere, a girl she'd never meet could sit anywhere she damn well pleased. In July, a young white reporter, nervous, sweaty, asked Claudie if she forgave the city. She stared at him for a long moment, then said, "Forgiveness is for people who apologize," and walked away. The fight wasn't over. New laws would come, new battles, new names, but Claudie Mae Fletcher had already won one war, and she had the scars to prove it.